Greetings, everybody. This is Christopher Messina coming at you from the Space Coast of Florida, the last free state in America, broadcasting from the very amateur Messy Time studios. And I'm delighted to be joined cross country by Robert Patrick, who I'm honored to have met as part of my duties in the Combat Control Board, because Robert is an ambassador for the Combat Controllers. We had a great time in Texas, and given all the insanity of the world today, he was gracious enough to come on and have a chat about, well, whatever. We're gonna see where we go. Robert, thanks so much for taking the time.
Oh, I'm so thrilled to be able to talk to you, and you were one of the highlights of the immersion that we did down there at the Combat Control Foundation with them at Lackland Air Base, and there were so many fascinating people to meet. You were one of the highlights, as I said earlier. We got to share a dinner together, and
that was fun.
kind of think about and the dinner was great, but also to talk about the experience of the combat control guys, the selection process that we had just witnessed.
Crazy.
And, I got brought into the Combat Control Foundation through Mark Navat, and I had met LA in Washington, and they checked me off and asked me to be the ambassador for the foundation, and I'm thrilled to do the little bit that I can to bring attention to the combat control fraternity. It's an amazing group of guys.
Completely.
Amazing to see the selection process. I don't know, how long have you been involved with the
I got involved back about 3 years ago, because I've done a lot of I've always spent a lot of time in the private sector working with military and a lot of national security stuff. So one of the combat controllers that I've worked with over the years, going back 15 years, was for a while heading up the foundation, and asked me if I'd come on the board and help out. And honored to, right? I mean, most people don't even know who they are. I always laugh because Hollywood, from John Wayne until about Steven Seagal, right? If you needed a badass in the movie, it was a Green Beret, right?
Sure.
And then somewhere along the line, they said, no, SEALs are somehow cooler, so we're going to make them SEALs, right? But as the combat controllers would say, if we were second best and we did everything without an additional 80 pounds on our back, we'd be SEAls, right? So most people, they've got no name recognition, no good PR, right? And I always tell folks, it's the Air Force Special Operations. They do everything Special Ops does, but they also rain down hellfire from planes who are 50,000 feet in the air or so, and they manage to land within 100 yards. It's kind of amazing, right? Like, they do an amazing job. So it was good to watch their selection process. No matter how hard they work, and of course it's in the military's interest, it's in everyone's interest to be most efficient in these things. But no matter what they do, the success rate is still like 12%.
Yeah.
No matter how hard they try to pre-select. And LA, all the guys will tell you, Dan will tell you, right? Like, they looked at guys starting their class with them and thought, I'll never beat that guy. I'll never beat that guy. And then there they are. They survived. They've survived this insane training process.
Yeah,
we were awesome.
Yeah, I know you and I were all like looking at each other, like watching what these guys were going through, and we'd heard. And I have a friend of mine that is active duty Navy, and he works for the Navy SEALs down there with the BUDS training. And I've talked to him about the combat control and the selection process for them, and I've said, sometimes they don't graduate at all. They have a zero. They start with whatever the number is, 100 or whatever, and they got zero to qualify. So it's so selective. The physical endurance and stamina and mental toughness they have to show, but then there's the intellectual side. I mean, they've got to be smart enough to be able to call in, create. I think they create a landing zone within 20 minutes. Upon their
something crazy, like, we'll get anywhere, we'll create an airstrip for you within, I think it's like within an hour or your money back.
I thought I heard 20 minutes. So
20 minutes, something crazy.
I thought I heard 20 minutes, and I was like, huh? So to listen to just the acronyms, the jargon, the specifics on calling in the strikes, knowing the ordnance, the planes. Right. I mean, my God, and having that quick recall of all that kind of stuff on the spot and what they have to do, it really is amazing. And you realize, these are supermen. These are the Marvel heroes of the real world. This is Iron Man. That's what these guys are. Superhero guys. Incredible to witness. And Mark Navat, a dear friend of mine, one of my best friends, of course, he's on the foundation. So he reined me into this, and I couldn't be more thrilled. I've heard all sorts of stories like you did. To meet Dan O'Shilling, who wrote Alone at Dawn.
Yep, that's going to be phenomenal. That's going to change the way the world understands who these special operators are.
Absolutely.
Mark's a genius in terms of conveying well what special operators go through in terms of, it's one of the most important things, and part of why I'm on the foundation and why I try my hardest to help out, is that you're an 18-year-old kid, right? You're jazzed up. You are in great shape. You got a goal, whether it's going to be SEALs, combat control, Green Beret, Ranger, whatever. You're 18, you're 19. You're a patriot. The world's full of bad people. You want to help out, but you also have absolutely no idea what you're going to see. Right, you just have no idea, and what I try to convey to Americans, who only 7% of Americans touch the military. Right, we've got a very big gap, as you know, in this country, of people who actually have an experience either in the military or with the military, and that gap is a tragedy because, even a lot of the kind of regular war's hell, obviously, but even sort of the regular army, if you are in a tank shooting a shell over the horizon, that is incredibly different from what we ask these guys to do, right? Special operators, up close and personal, it's really awful. And the whole point of that is, despite all the money, all the experience, all the testing, everything that goes in, there's never any predictability as to which guy starting here will end up at the end of a 10-year tour seeing hell on earth, the worst that people do to each other, horrible. And some of them will be just fine and shrug it off. Some of them will need some help. Some of them, sadly, commit suicide. I just try to bring that awareness to everyone outside. Like, you just have no idea what we ask these guys to do, and they don't know until they get there. And you're going house to house in Baghdad in the middle of a war zone, and you have to make a decision quickly about what to do with a 14-year-old holding a grenade, right? Like, nothing prepares you for that. And yeah, they just do a lot more for us than people even know. And so the more that we can be helpful, the better.
Well, I feel the same way. Over the years, being an actor and being able to portray different branches of the military, and I think I've pretty much covered every branch of the military except for Space Force. I'm proud to have played these fictional characters, but it has through those roles, I've sort of been brought in and immersed in this world of how do we support our troops and how do we help our veterans. And I know for the past 17 years, I've been riding Harley Davidsons to Washington, D.C. with some Vietnam vets.
Yep.
And I've learned the stories of the Vietnam vets. And I've learned about how horribly they were treated when they came back to our country. And, people calling them baby killers and spitting on them and not being welcomed home. And, that's so disheartening. I've said this to Admiral Mullen when he was the commander of the Joint Chiefs of Staffs. It was one of the reasons why I never really considered the military as an option, even though I came from a military family. I might have told you this at dinner. My grandfather has a Bronze Star. He was a World War I, World War II, Korea. In 1963, he passed away at the age of 64. I knew him briefly. I was about 5 years old, I think, maybe when he passed away. But he is one of my earliest memories, and being with him at Fort Bragg, and he was a lieutenant colonel, and so you would think that I would just immediately go into the military, but no. Going to high school during the 70s and seeing the way these guys were treated,
it really made it look bad.
It made it look bad, and I know we did talk about that. So to go there and see the selection process, and then kind of sit there and go like, man, I was gypped.
I was gypped, exactly.
I was gypped. I should have. I didn't know about this. I think I could do this. The 18-year-old Robert Patrick might be able to do this. I'll never know. I'll never know because
I was just happy that I was able to make it through the memorial push-ups at the end.
Yeah, I feel good about that. You and me both. You know, as Dan O'Schilling told me, he said, "Looks like you're carrying a little weight there, Robert. A little extra weight there, buddy." Yeah. I'm not as lean and mean as I used to be. But to see those guys and see their camaraderie and understand their brotherhood, and I've been able to ride with New York Mike, who was a part of the combat control. He's not a combat controller, but he was a forward air combat. I can't remember. He did the same thing. He flew around and identified in the jungle where they were and called in strikes. Yep. And I'm not sure what they call it. Forward air. Anyway, and New York Mike introduced me to Mark. So it's been through those. Those efforts of riding to the wall and being there for the Vietnam vets, and then doing all these different roles I've done. I got invited by the USO, and that's how I met Admiral Mullen, and doing USO tours with him and going around Iraq and Afghanistan and really, really getting up close and personal and seeing what our troops.
They must love that. I mean, those guys in those war zones, they must just love it. When they get a respite and they get some entertainment and some folks coming in, they must absolutely love that.
Yeah, I think most of the guys I met honestly told me we would rather have the cheerleaders, Robert.
Fair enough.
We are glad to see the Terminator here, and we do appreciate you coming. But couldn't you have come with the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders?
You could have brought some cheerleaders, exactly.
Yeah. No offense, buddy, but that kind of stuff. But no,
we've been out in the desert a long time.
So I had a great experience doing that. I can't remember the number of tours I've done, but to get into a forward operation base in Afghanistan and see there, firsthand what's being required of these guys.
Yeah.
The basic army, the infantry. You start to meet some of the special forces guys. You see what's going on with them. But I never got in as far as to actually meet some combat controllers, or you never really you never could go to where there was really anything really crazy going on.
And that's a mark of what they do. You didn't want to be there.
You didn't want to be there.
You don't want to be there.
It's almost like you ask, where are the Marines? And they go, oh, you don't want to go to the Marines.
You want to go there. No.
You don't want to go there.
No.
Okay.
But Pete, so funny, you had the different timelines. Like when I got out of college, peace had broken out. The Berlin Wall had fallen. I got out of high school in '89, and then I went to college in '93. Like I went and spoke with recruiters in the Navy. They loved my test scores. They loved my language skills. I imagine I was ashamed at that time. I could have passed it, but like I remember talking to recruiters. You're like, there's no career. There's no war. It's over. We're done. Like we won, basically. Oh, would that had been true, right? But at that time, that period of 90 to 95, 96, they were powering down. It was talk about the peace dividend, and there was just no career. And they looked at me like I was nuts. Like, why would you want to do this? If you could join, we'll take you, I guess. But like, for what? And then of course, September 11th happened, and now we know what for what.
Isn't that interesting? I got to sit down and smoke a cigar, and I'm going to name drop some of these military guys that I've met. General Tommy Franks, who was head of CENTCOM for years. I don't know if you ever had a chance to meet him, but we were talking about this, and I was kind of having a very similar conversation with him. And he said, after Vietnam, one of his number one duties was to get the Army straightened out.
Yeah. Sure.
And he was telling me how he started with the basics, and that became the focus in those downtimes of, well, we've got a situation, and we got to kickstart this whole thing all over, and I've got to build on that foundation for whatever is going on in the future. But right now, my focus is just to get this shit back together, man, because it's a mess, right?
It's a total mess.
So he went up the ranks, and of course, he led, was in charge of the military in the Gulf War. So it is interesting. You know, that's the thing that I often think about, is, you know, war is hell, and you don't want to go to war. And I do know that, you know, you're in the natural resource business, and you know, natural resources are usually what most wars are about, at least
a lot of it, right? Well,
I've
got the biggest mine in the world for a lot of the materials that the military needs. It is, and thank God it is smack dab in the Atlantic Ocean between Europe and North America. You know, when I showed an old admiral friend of mine, I said, "Where's your mine again?" And I pointed to the, you know, the southern tip of Greenland. He said, "Oh, that's ours." Right? Like in time of war, that's ours.
Well, that's, you know, I went to Niger. Okay.
A delightful spot.
Yeah. Oh, you know, this whole moral thing that's going on in these poor countries, where these, you know, leaders that are scumbags, that are taking all the money they're getting from the governments that are giving them money to help them, and they're starving their people, and
happily
and
and
the people are living
all day long.
Yeah, it's the same story everywhere you go, and the people are living on an annual income of $700 a year, U.S. I mean, it's poor as all poor. And you get there, and we've got a big base, and you talk with the generals, and you know why we're there. We're there because the Chinese are there.
That's right.
And and who's with us? Well, you got your Italians, your Canadians, your French, your British, you know, everybody's this big base, and everybody's like, we got to be there. We got to be there because the Chinese are there. If we're not here, they're here. They're going to exploit everything and get everything and take everything from the mines. And so you start to see, you know, this really is what it's about. It's these natural resources. And then it's that overlap of, where you've got, nobody really wants to go to war, but if we do go to war, you want to have the best guys.
Yeah.
You want,
and
you want to have
the
greatest
the best thing ever, right?
Yeah.
Milton Friedman had this great statement when they were talking about the draft during the Vietnam War and how contentious that was. And he made the compelling argument that, you know, the best thing in the world is the volunteer military. Because I know a lot of folks go in, GI Bill, get a college degree. Like, there are a lot of folks who are, if they have to go to war, they're going to. But the tip of the spear is only a small percentage anyway. So if you go in and you're an airplane mechanic, the likelihood that anyone's asking you to pick up your rifle and shoot someone is pretty low. Now, if you're in a forward air base, you will. But so a lot of people can go through an entire military career, and, you know, they never get shot at. What I find fascinating is dealing with all the serious, patriotic adrenaline junkies who want the fight, right? And thank God we have them, because the reason we're watching the Russians get bogged down in the Ukraine, the reason the Chinese army doesn't particularly worry us, aside from their missiles and things, is that even everyone should have learned this from the Revolutionary War, right? Starting in Concord in April of 1775, when the pompous British officers wore these big gorgets, these polished silver brass things, which in hindsight, when you got colonists with long rifles, it's just a target, right? So you've got this broadcloth that was more expensive than the uniforms the regulars had, who turned vaguely orange after about a year or two. So bright red cloth and a big target. Can you think of anything stupider in terms of the military?
No.
But even then, we have the best non-commissioned officer corps, the corporals and sergeants in all the branches that make shit happen, right? And they mock them all the time. They mock the officers all the time, right? Having big thoughts, big ideas, right? But if you want to get shit done, and I would look for it when we're hiring people who have come out of the service, you give me a master sergeant, I will hire him. I don't care what the job is. he will get it done, and he will make sure everyone under him gets it done too. And that is the power of the U.S. military, is an incredibly well-trained non-commissioned officer class.
I remember that, and I can echo what you've just said. I learned that on the unit when we were doing the unit. I was doing Sean Ryan, David Mamet, Eric Haney, who had written the book Inside the Delta Force, and it was the sergeant majors.
Yeah,
that these are the guys.
They get it done.
And they were the dudes. And I had never realized that before, but you're absolutely correct. Yeah.
Well, most people don't. Well, it'll come out in the book, I think, or in part of the movie. Dan wrote a bit about it in Alone at Dawn. But the very way the Americans got the trust of the Northern Alliance in Afghanistan. So towers are falling, really awful. That was the third time Islamists tried to kill me. They sent them over. CIA, 12 Rangers, and a combat controller. So I think 15 guys arrive at Bagram Airport. That used to be an airport, and it had been a stalemate, like a World War I stalemate, for like 4 or 5 years. The Northern Alliance on one side and the Taliban on another, and it was literally like, France 1917. No one had moved. They shot at each other occasionally. Nothing had changed. And they arrive, and the combat controller looks around, and who's in charge? They get the head of the Northern Alliance, and they look at everything, and says, all right, we'll fix this for you by sundown. And the guy's looking at him like he's insane, right? He's got 15 people with him. This is it. The Americans may be good, but apparently they're nuts. He told me he's going to fix this problem. There are like 6,000 Taliban right over the horizon, not even the horizon, right over there. And they look around, and sometimes as he said later, and I had the honor of having lunch with this guy. You hide in plain sight, and the airport tower was still there. So they got there, they got up inside, looked around. He gets all his batteries out and all of his equipment and his air traffic controller shit, and he's talking to people. And the planes are so high up in the air that no one can hear them. And so he turns around after half an hour of getting his telemetry right, and the Rangers are making sure that he doesn't get killed. I think one of their taglines is, if you keep me alive for an hour, I'll keep you alive for the rest of the war. Right? Basically, protect me until I can get air power here. And so he says to the Northern Alliance commander, all right, tell your men to get their head down. And the guy's looking at him like he's insane. He's like, are more people coming? He's like, trust me. So, all right, everyone get their head down. And then 30 seconds later, the world just explodes, right? Wave after wave of incendiary bombs that, like, for 3 or 4 minutes, they just watched this wall of fire called down from out of nowhere, apparently. And when it's over, there's nothing. There are no bodies to collect. Like, it's just gone. And that event is what made the Northern Alliance throw in with the Americans. Like, if you can fucking do that,
yeah,
gone, great, we're with you. And then sadly, we of course frittered that away at the end. But
yeah, I just watched a documentary on Netflix called PsyOps or something like that. Have you seen that? And they talk about that. And there was a very charismatic leader of the Afghanistan Northern Alliance. Is that right? Didn't he pass away?
He was killed in an interview with a CNN reporter.
Yes.
Taliban managed to slip in with them. So
they had cameras.
Communist News Network for a great job. Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, they had cameras that were bombs.
Yep.
Blew him up.
He only agreed to the interview. Yep.
Yeah.
Great guy. He lived, it could have been a very different war.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because it was over.
They had pretty much, they swept through. I mean, look, the Taliban were a bunch of maniacs with guns who had their vision of a better society. And the unfortunate reality is there's nothing perfectly pure here. Part of what they were railing against was a very corrupt government that they were not like they were angels either, right? At least a lot of people preferred the Taliban when they arrived because the leadership that had preceded them liked to take boys off the streets and use them as sex toys, and they like to take young women for the same reason, and the Taliban put an end to that. So we don't like them much because they harbored Osama bin Laden, who took down the towers. But had they never, you can always play what if with history. Had the Taliban never harbored Osama, which they did because he gave them a lot of money, we would never have given a shit about Afghanistan. It's a bummer living that way, and it's a shame. And we're going to get involved in everybody's life, but we only did because they got bin Laden in there, and we chased him out of Sudan. He ended up in Afghanistan. Almost got him. Almost got him. They bombed that aspirin factory under Clinton. We almost got him, and he slipped away. Anyway, so
yeah, that's amazing to see how all that works. I mean, you have a much more of a accurate and insightful way into how all that works. I just from the outside watching what's going on. I remember being at the forward operation base with Admiral Mullen up there, Camp Dicey, I believe.
Yeah.
And you're looking at that terrain, and you're just thinking about what these guys have got to do to fight in this.
Yeah.
And you know, I know you and I are both very aware of what went on with John Chapman and the great combat controller, and we've seen that video of the Medal of Honors, the two that he got, and Dan wrote the book, and you've referenced it, Alone at Dawn, and man,
he saved a lot of lives all on his own. I mean, I can't even imagine the endurance. I mean, he was shot like 14 times in that confrontation over the course of like 14 hours. I mean, crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And it's amazing what he endured, and to be left like that. I mean, for your listeners or viewers, you know, he comes out of the helicopter with Navy SEALs, and he's the first one that goes for the enemy. The Navy SEAL commander falls face forward into the snow. Chapman turns around, runs up the hills, the mountainside, to the first bunker, and engages and takes out.
Which is the worst part, is they had bad intel. They didn't know. There was a nest of Circassian mercenaries on top of that outcrop, that mountain. So they wanted to get him up to the top so he could then do his combat control thing, right? See it around, see the terrain, get the bombs in. And when they landed, they took fire. I mean, it was what Dan writes about it in the book, but like, nothing's ever perfect in war and it's chaos, but they didn't know these guys were up there.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they come out
and they had the one body they were trying to retrieve.
Yeah.
And for the life of me, I can't remember the soldier's name. I feel like it's a Robbins. But his body was up there, so they were trying to retrieve him. It's just amazing.
And they lost all radio contact. So by the time the major headache, as I gather from Dan's telling, is that war is chaos, right? And the copter got knocked out and the pilot got knocked down before they even radioed to tell them they were under fire. So like the next base, the next load of guys coming didn't know. So that was I think the most remarkable part of what he did, is he stayed alive. He stayed between the landing spot for the next helicopter and the Circassians who were above him, managed to kill a few of them, even though he'd been shot multiple times, and managed to, in the process, let the landing helicopter know that they were going to encounter fire. I mean, just incredible. And
that's how he got his second Medal of Honor.
Yep. Just madness. And you know,
and the whole thing that it was recorded by a drone.
Recorded by drone. You can see it on YouTube. It's the only Medal of Honor recipient you can watch from. It's great.
You can watch it happen, and it's amazing to watch. I don't know. I don't know if you follow me on social media, but I happen to be on my motorcycle. I happen to be back in Cleveland visiting my mom, and I realized I was 3 hours from where John Chapman is.
Oh, yeah. No, you went out to the graveyard.
Nice. I went to. It was a beautiful, beautiful day in Pennsylvania, and to get there to his grave, and I called Mark Navat, and I said to Mark, I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm on my way to go have lunch with a bunch of combat controllers, retired combat controllers. We're going to have lunch, about 12 of them." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "You'll never guess where I am." And he said, "You're visiting your mom." And I said, "Yes, I am. But do you know where I'm standing right now?" And he said, "No." And I said, "I'm standing with John Chapman." And I could just hear how it hit him. And it really blew him away. I was really moved after the dinner we had and what we had witnessed. And I came home and I read that book, Alone at Dawn, and I read it very quickly. And that sort of gave me the impetus when I go back to my mom. Maybe I'll try to find where John Chapman is buried, because it's just the guy's just amazing. What a hero! What a guy! And you're right. The movie will be phenomenal when Dano gets that made.
Yeah, it will be.
It's going to be incredible, and it'll help tell the story of what a CCT is. I love all the marketing and messaging they are doing. They're putting out little videos and stuff explaining what they do, and I love anybody, especially the guy I know that works for Buds right now with the Navy SEALs. I'm constantly busting his balls about that. Oh yeah, that Navy SEALs are tough. They're tough, yeah. What do you know about the combat controllers?
Yeah. Well, that was the funniest part of about, especially about military culture, right? Is my father roared because he was at Fort Bragg.
That's what my grandfather was.
Yeah,
in the early 60s.
And so I sent him the video that they took of us of the memorial push-ups, right, and doing all that.
Yeah.
Son got to do it, and we all did it together. That was fun. And then of course,
your son was cool, man.
Dan gave that huge pep talk to the current inductees, the current candidates, where he went on and on about the number of medals won by the Air Force in the last 20 years, and none of them were for pilots. They were all combat controllers, and on and on and on. I said, remember, you're the toughest of the toughest, the biggest badasses in the world. If you're any less than that, they call you SEALs.
Yeah, it's just constant bashing.
That was hilarious. Really funny, and it was what I thought was so great, because I was very fortunate because both my son came. He's just turned 16, and of course they were all putting the 100-pound rucksack on him and giving him the cans to carry, and his mom's like, "What are you trying to enlist him?" Oh, maybe anyway. And then my daughter was there too. It's funny to watch that very specific military culture, which most folks just don't encounter, right? But it is so necessary to what we do. And I juxtapose to jump a bit to kind of the absurd, insane, bizarre reaction on our campuses recently to, these evil fuckers from Hamas cross the border, kill 1,400 people. And I said on October 9th, recorded on this, that within a week, all of American media is going to be bitching about the kids in Gaza. And that's it. And we're watching it happen. We're watching it happen. It's madness. It's infuriating, but it is.
But Hamas is counting on that, though.
Yes, this is their goal.
They know. Yeah. They know that's what's going to happen. I have to say that I did talk to Dan Schilling a couple of days ago, and he was going over his thoughts on this and how the attack took place and why it took place. And I don't know if I'm going to quote him correctly, but he said, they picked the weakest point to do the invasion. They had, obviously prepared for it. And then they wanted to commit the most horrible atrocities ever inflicted on anybody. And they did. And it's awful. And they knew they were going to make Israel respond because they have to.
Oh, yeah.
And they have to go after Hamas. And they knew that they're going to go into Gaza. And this is all part of the plan. Yep. And what they're counting on is this public opinion turning to where people are more concerned about the innocent people in Gaza and not necessarily the people that were murdered in the initial invasion.
Tactic. Yeah. And this time, the little part that I can do, I've been screaming about this on this platform. I write about it. I was just in Europe talking to a bunch of senior politicians about it. This time, and this is, to me, they talk about kind of 9/11. It's Pearl Harbor, in that the Japanese were 100% wrong about what was going to happen if they did this. And if Hamas had done this, it was like 30 people and another missile, and they would listen to the UN, they would listen to the American media, they would listen to everyone saying call for a ceasefire. there is this is the, and I wish this were not true, and I actually want to have Dan on to talk about this. To
I
me,
think Dan is retired from podcasts.
he owes me one. He owes me one.
He said he's officially retired. He told me that.
Well, there's a challenge. Well, let's
he
see.
He said, I am officially retired. I'm done with it. I'm not talking anymore.
Oh, that's good.
I'm the surrogate for.
If I meet that challenge, we'll see what happens.
You got a tough hill to climb, Chris.
It's a hill. Hey, look, but I'm open to the challenge. The least I can do. All I got to do is persuade a difficult man. But anyway, my reading on it is just that this will end in World War III because the Israelis are not going to stop. Hamas will be dead. Hezbollah will be dead. The Iranians will be gone. And if it takes a month or 3 or 5 years, there's no turning back from this. There is no mediated peace. There is no more ceasefire. They're not going to listen, and the Americans are going to back them, and it's just going to get worse. That's my opinion. I don't see it stopping.
Yeah, I have to say I totally agree with you. I think that's what's going to happen. And it's
no one told the Allies to stop bombing Dresden in 1943 because of the German children, right? You brought this up. Hamas did this. They're the government of Gaza. And I don't see students on American campuses we're back to them chasing Jews in the streets. I don't see them looking for Egyptian students asking why the government doesn't open up the Rafah crossing, right?
Yeah.
Amazingly enough, that doesn't seem to be an issue. It's an open air prison, but one of the borders are their Arab brothers, so-called. So why is it an open air prison? What are you talking about? The lies, they're coordinated lies. And those of us who see the lies, we have to talk about it. We have to yell about it because the media is on the side of the idiots.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely in agreement with you. And I've been doing everything I can to bring attention to it. And I've, day one, I reached out to all my friends that are in Israel and part of the IDF. And, immediately taking that position and trying to get it out there and showing that I stand with them. And, it's horrible. I both my kids have graduated college, and both are out. And I've talked about this with them, and they steer clear about the politics, and I just don't understand these students and what they're being taught by these professors and the hatred they seem to have towards America. Now how they're willing to fixate and become anti-Semitic and what they're doing. These kids are going to regret this. This is horrible. They don't know their fucking history. They have no clue what's going on. They don't know what happened. They're not aware of what happened in World War II. Nope. They don't understand what's been going on. They don't read the Bible. They don't understand the history with Israel and the fact that it belongs to the Jewish people. I'm a Christian, and I understand that, if they're coming after the Jewish people, eventually they're coming after the Christian people. I mean, it's all, we are tied together. We are this
intimately, but what I find so painful,
I don't understand why these kids, I don't understand why these kids don't understand this. They don't get it. But this Marxist,
it's deliberate,
it's communist bullshit that they're being taught on these universities is I say flush them out.
Flush out the demons. All day long. What I love the most is I can't resist. My wife laughs at me. She's like, why do you bother? Occasionally I'll respond to one of these idiots on Instagram or something. I've already been tossed off LinkedIn because I criticized. I was tossed off LinkedIn.
I can't believe that happens. You can't be censored for
crazy.
Speaking your mind.
I criticized, this was before October 7th. This was a year ago. Some Palestinian magazine wrote some insanity that everyone knows all Jews are homicidal, genocidal maniacs, blah, blah, blah. And I criticized that. I was thrown off LinkedIn for bullying the lunatic declaring that all Jews are homicidal maniacs. So that's LinkedIn, right? So I just moved on. But I talked to the kids, and they have no idea that every single war Israel's been in has been a defensive war, right? They all whine about the 1967 borders. And I said to this kid the other day, I said, all right, let's suppose you're back in the schoolyard and the biggest bully comes up to a kid half his size and tries to take his lunch money. What he doesn't know is the small kid has been doing competitive karate for his entire life, and he beats the bully's ass and takes his money and walks off. And then the bully goes to the principal and cries and wants his money back. That's what they're talking about when they bitch about the 1967 borders. Because it was an award designed to push the Jews into the ocean, kill them all, and the Israelis fought back and took territory. And so just the insanity that you're asking someone to give up land they took after they were attacked. The whole thing is madness. But they have tried. George Gilder wrote this great book called The Israel Test, and he lays it out. That and my contention is, but I call you were talking about when you were growing up, what the military looked like wasn't attractive, right? My contention is that the worst policy this country has ever had was allowing an educational deferment for the Vietnam draft, because what it meant was rich boys could avoid the draft by going to college. And I don't know why we thought sitting in class reading French poetry was more important than killing communists and rice paddies, but we did. And those kids stayed in school. And then, holy shit, now I've got a degree, but the war's still going on and my draft number's up. Daddy, and they put him in school again. He got a master's degree. He got 2 more years. The war's still going on. Jesus. So he enters a PhD program to protect himself from going to Vietnam. And so you end up with men, particularly, who never became men in a sociological sense, and they're children, and now they got a PhD, and now they hide out in the academy, and they teach whiny Marxist crap to young people, and they infiltrated the academy, and they infiltrated Columbia Teachers College, and this was deliberate. And they did it, and they won.
Wow, I have never heard that.
They won.
That is like the most concise description of what happened, and now I get it.
Now you get it.
Wonder how they infiltrated, because you literally say, I'm 65. You literally say, what happened in the 60s? Why did this happen? And you just hit it in a nutshell.
And they were deliberate. They didn't lie. They told us we were going to do it.
Wow.
Yeah. They modeled themselves. Oh. Bill Ayers, the Weather Underground, right? He and his wife Dorn, they went into education at the University of Illinois. And I just happened to, one of Bill Ayers's high school colleagues or classmates happens to be a friend of mine. They grew up together in Winnetka, Illinois. And Bill said specifically when this was going on that we're modeling ourselves on the Jesuits, the Society of Jesus, and the Catholic Church. If you want to change the world, you change the children. And they went into education with the deliberate intent. So that's why if you look back at the curriculum back in 1950, geography, history, science, facts, right? Real facts. That all became social studies. And well, grammar's not important. You don't have to worry about it. And they removed physical education. They decided to deliberately emasculate this country, especially the boys, right? Turn them into little sissies, and they don't do gym anymore. They're all fat. They play video games. And this was deliberate, and they dumbed them down. Kids don't know history. They don't know where they are. They don't know geography. They don't know anything. And that was deliberate, because if you want to control a population, you just make them stupid, and you fill their heads with crap about social justice and colonialists and all this blah, 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 blah. And that's why we are where we are, and we need to fight it. We need to fight it as deliberately as they fought it, or we're going to lose the country. My opinion.
That is really, really enlightening what you just said. I've never heard it articulated that way. Wow. And that's why I'm on the outside, because I went through school in the 60s. So I was, coming through the elementary school system at that time. And still, when I was in high school, I had teachers that were, very, very proud of America, and very, very proud of what we had done and what we had done in World War II. And I came from a family, my father was very proud of what his father had done. My father didn't get to serve because he had asthma. But I can remember my father questioning what was going on in Vietnam and getting a little worried about it as my draft day kind of, it looked like it might go on and I might get drafted. I remember him being kind of concerned about it. And he had spent some time at MIT in 1968. He got his master's from MIT. So he was in the late 60s there in Boston during that whole hippie movement, where all this stuff was cultivated and percolated
Yep.
and
Timothy Leary busy telling kids not to
yes,
study hard, they should take acid and do nothing. That's a great idea,
yes,
Tim.
yeah,
Good job, buddy.
yeah. I met him once. He burnt my wife's coat on some lava lamp or something. I remember meeting him at a party. Very
That's one of
strange
the
man.
best sentences I've ever heard.
Yeah, very strange experience. But I hear you, and now, here we are, and I talk to the people that I talk to, my friends that are Jewish, and we're it's they're just they're obviously very horrified and shocked by what they're seeing, and but just like you, they knew this would happen.
Oh,
They
yeah.
knew that people. This is what we've been saying, and this is what we've been warning you about. And this is what we talked to you about and said that you don't know unless you're Jewish that there's this constant thing hanging over you,
never ending. And what I find, I just have to say, what I find so utterly appalling is, so I went, studied at the University of Chicago, ended up with a degree in anthropology, Islamic history, and Arabic, and I worked in the Gulf for years, right? So what's most appalling is this vicious insanity for Hamas, who they've accumulated $11 billion in wealth, and the leaders are living in Doha and in Istanbul and London and having a great time.
Qatar, yeah,
crazy. Is that the best thing that Trump did? His policy instincts were wonderful. His verbiage was terrible. The Abraham Accords. This is a direct flight between Tel Aviv and Abu Dhabi now. Like those ancient hatreds of even the last generation, predominantly this generation of young Arabs in Israel, they don't share it. Frankly, they all went and studied at NYU together, right? So that this last gasp of hatred, God willing, was the Iranian mullahs terrified that the Israelis and Saudis were going to make peace and be friends, because then that's what locked out.
That's what I heard too. I did hear that, and that starts to add up for you. They were really concerned about the Abraham Accords that put in place, and the Saudi Arabia, that it was going to be peace, and so this is a last ditch effort to try to tear it all down, and we could possibly, as a result, be being led into World War III, which nobody wants that, though. Nobody wants to head towards Armageddon.
Except for the apocalyptic death cultists. They do. That's the problem.
Yeah, but
they want it.
And who are these people?
It's the Iranian mullahs and everyone they've inspired.
Apocalyptic death cult.
Yep, you got it. Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, they have found meaning in hatred. In 2000,
they have found meaning in hatred. Wow.
Have you ever seen the video of the IDF removing the Jewish settlers from Gaza in 2005? Right, so they made a decision. One more bad idea of this land for peace bullshit. There was no peace because ask Arafat, the Palestinians, those people, Hamas, they don't want peace. They don't want something constructive. When they left behind hundreds of millions of dollars of capital improvements for water, sanitation, agriculture, business, right? Gaza, right now, should be Singapore or Dubai. It should be paradise, right? But Hamas chose hate over their own people. And so there's nothing wrong with Gaza. Should be paradise. Gaza should be awesome. And so Hamas, the first thing they did, right? I gave you a thought experiment. If your worst enemy built a 90,000 square foot gorgeous mansion, and then you took it over from him, would you tear it down because he built it? Or would you go, ha, 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 and sleep in his big 4-poster bed, right? They did the equivalent of tearing it down. So Hamas said to the people of Gaza, we're tearing out all of this because the Jews built it. Dumbest thing I've ever heard. But they had to, because they had to push the narrative of hate. They had to say, the Jews did this to you. And so instead of offering a path of, look, we're going to have beachfront resorts, so we're going to get investment from Europe. It's going to be great. And we're going to, use the stuff that was built here. We're going to build a great society. Yeah. Ignore the Jews. Who cares? Nope. They chose to focus all of their hatred and ire on the Jewish state instead of helping their own people. And here we are. And the whole world has now bought their bullshit that there's something wrong. No, you think of any other country in the world that is asked to show restraint when thousands of its people are massacred in a day?
Never.
Would anyone be asked to do that? No, because the world hates Jews. Period. Full stop.
I think the United Nations and their actions sort of second that. And
all day long.
And it's shocking. I'm everything that's going on. I just can't fathom. And I have to be honest with you. I've been traveling in Europe. I was most recently in Brussels last week, as I mentioned to you, and to go over there and see, there are a lot of Islamic people living in Brussels, and there's a whole contingency there. And I remember driving through there, and I saw a mural. I'll send you a photograph of it later. I saw a mural of George Floyd.
Wow.
Exactly what I said. Right. Here I am in Brussels, Belgium, and I started to get a little nervous. Actually, I was with somebody, and I said, I was with a Canadian guy, a friend of mine from Vancouver, and I said, "Wow, do you see that?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "What? I wonder where we're going to go. We were going to go visit a tourist attraction. Yeah, and I think they call it the Atomium or something. It's this big atom structure that they built in Brussels for some world, national festival or something back in the 50s. Pretty interesting thing. But anyway, I realize we're obviously in where the Muslim immigrants are. Yep. And this is this section of town that this is their neighborhood. And they have a mural of George Floyd. Right. So explain to me what the coalition of George Floyd and Palestine. Where's the overlap there?
The overlap is this fantasy that it's basically the politics of jealousy versus the politics of rationality. And George Gilder puts it perfectly, right? If you listen to the left, you listen to these woke idiots, it's all about groups, group guilt. Like white people are bad, black people are good, whatever their particular flavor is. It's all about groups, right? And this intersectional whiny nonsense. Oh God, I mean, really, it's a reason to carpet bomb universities. This crap about, well, I'm a victim, and it's this competitive victimhood industry. They want to be a victim because then they can take money off the state, who is going to pay them because some people feel guilty. Whereas, and the reason they most definitively hate Jews the most, even if they don't know this is why, is because Judaism, and which carries through into Christianity and Islam, is the foundation of the human idea that guilt and virtue are individual. The 10 Commandments are individual commandments. It's what you do, not what your group does. It's what you did that matters. And so they can't stand individual responsibility because George Floyd was a drug addict passing a counterfeit bill to a counter clerk who had been told if he took counterfeit money on his shift, it was coming out of his paycheck. So George is ripping people off, including the working stiff doing his job. He's high as a kite in public, and sadly, he's a big guy, so he's scary. And then he resists arrests. He gets put into the back of the car, fights his way back out. Now, it's a shame the guy is gone, but this is a man that did a home invasion and held a gun to the belly of a pregnant woman in his illustrious career. So how this scumbag became St. George is an astonishment of epic proportions for anybody rational, right? So, and how that has now transformed into a movement that got 3 lesbian Marxists a $20 million real estate portfolio and managed to, get that wall painted in Brussels as if there's somehow some kind of oppressed solidarity. That is terrifying. Like, that is absolutely terrifying. And so the hatred for the Jews comes back to that the economic pie is not fixed, right? The whole point of it is people talk about Israel and they have so much water versus the Palestinians. It's like they think the Jews showed up to this prosperous country and took it.
Right.
No, they showed up to the same patch of hard scrabbled dirt. There was nothing there, and they built it. That's very different. Building from nothing is different than taking a fixed pie.
Absolutely.
And that's the ideological fight, even if the hordes in the street don't know it. That's the fight they're fighting. And they've been brainwashed, sadly.
Oh, it's unbelievable. I can't even, you just can't believe it.
It's horrifying.
My wife, you know, she's a liberal gal, and you know, she has quite a few Jewish friends, and you know, she's just amazed by what she's seeing. Like,
crazy.
Why is this happening? And you do a really, really great job of explaining it. So I'm really thankful that I'm on your podcast and able to talk with you, because I think I have a much better understanding.
It's a deep hatred, and until we change the way education is done and how people see opportunity and individual responsibility and rights, the country, we're in serious trouble. When you've got polls showing like 60 to 80% of registered Democrats think socialism might be a good idea, up to 15% of Republicans think that, and 30% of independents. Like that idea, the fact that infiltrated into the schools is terrifying. The most prosperous, freest country the world has ever seen is based on if you work hard, you will be rewarded. This is the only country that's based on, even in Europe when I worked there, do a lot of work in global capital markets. Everyone who wants to do a startup, right? Clever kids in China, Japan, the Middle East, Europe, they come to America because you could get seed funding and an A round, and you could turn yourself into a billionaire on your hard work. And Europe, just the way you look at it, just quick comparisons, it's typical in Silicon Valley or in the Research Triangle or various pockets of investment in America. If you got a really good idea, a venture capitalist will give you $3 million and for basically 40% of your company, whatever. Like they'll take a significant chunk, maybe not all of it, and they'll have some control, but like they'll work with you, and you could eventually turn it into something. They're taking a risk with their money or their clients' money, and you're going to get there. That same deal in Europe, if you're that same entrepreneur at the same stage, if you raise $3 million, they'd probably want 95% of your company. And they look at you strangely like, but I'm taking all the risk. You're like, but this is all my intellectual property, and your money is going to do nothing but earn interest rates if you don't invest. That concept is American. It is not European. It is not Asian. It is not, they just don't get it. They're happy to invest in big things that need to grow, but they do not invest in early stage stuff like we do in America. And that attitude, I have hope, because it still is how we operate, but we've got a massive class of whiners and parasites. The fact that all of these kids took out college loans of their own volition, and then Biden just forgave it.
Yeah, well,
crazy. Think about that.
Did he? He did. He did. He passed it.
So all these working class people who didn't go to college are basically paying off the loans of someone who took out a debt and decided they don't want to pay it because they'd rather go to Coachella. I mean, it's horrifying. I'm sorry, but think about that, right? From the world you grew up in to today.
I'm not a college graduate, so I have a different route, and I took a different route, and I pursued something artistic, and it's worked out for me, and I've been able to pay to put both my kids through college, and no loans were taken, and I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the fact that both my kids did well and graduated, and I'm not looking for a handout from the government for that. I don't feel that my children should be their education should be paid for by the taxes of some labor in Detroit, Michigan that's working on the auto line. I get it. That was my choice and my children's choice. And that astounds me. It's sort of, it feeds into the old the suspicion we have about the work ethic right now. I own a business. I own a Harley Davidson of Santa Clarita, and it's interesting getting people to work for us. And I don't want to comment, but I mean, you have to really work to find people that you want to hire.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Just it's kind of unbelievable. Yeah. You give someone an opportunity and they think it's a burden. You're like, well,
yeah, they do. And they kind of come to you with their manifesto of, by the way, these are my days that I want to have off
exactly.
Okay, well, let's get in here and let's get going. Let's start working for a little bit before we start, coming in demanding, how you're going to use your vacation time or your extra time above vacation time. We haven't even started working yet. Yep. So yeah, it's kind of amazing. I have a great staff. We have wonderful people that are working for us, but we do have to go through a lot of people to find the right people to fit in there for us. And I'm sure you do too. I don't know how many people you employ.
Well, we've got, all told with the mine eventually will go up to like 400 people to run that whole thing. And right now the core staff is just great. It's all the managerial team and the design engineers over the last 23 years. I just joined formally as CEO 2 years ago. We got involved with the main owner 6 years ago, and he's been building this since 2000. So it's a long process to build. Wow. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
But luckily, it's funny. I see this in mining, especially, and oil and gas, where we know the most. People work really, really hard, and that gives me a lot of faith. Like there isn't any slacker on the oil rig platform, right?
Right.
You self-select out.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. That is the thing that kind of keeps us going. Hey, if we lose hope,
I got nothing but hope. I do think that
we are
screwed cycles, and I do think the only thing that has to change is that, for whatever reason, culturally, the left have been kind of more adroit with the use of words. And also, if you want to change the culture, you're more focused on it, right? For those of us who think that America's pretty good, can always be improved. Most people are focused on building their businesses, going to church or synagogue or mosque or Buddhist temple, whatever, and they're living their lives. And the reason the political class is winning, in my opinion, is that most people don't pay attention. Like I moved from New York to America. I grew up in New York, and when Bill de Blasio was elected, that night we left. We basically was like, we're done.
Is that seriously? You went to Florida?
Yeah, we moved. I'm like, I'm done. We got to get out of here before the end of June, so I'm not paying taxes in New York for this year. We got to go. And the difference was I left Manhattan, which is very left leaning. That's fine. But then it wasn't that where we are is more right or left leaning. It's just that people are focused on what used to be most important. They're in their communities. They're coaching the little league team. They're focusing their kids' school. It's not this outward focused, I'm a hip, cool New Yorker and I care more about Europe than America kind of vibe. And it's a great environment. Right, like that. We just went to my son's National Honor Society induction ceremony last night. Now, of course, they're bitching about America, right? Everyone's working hard. These kids have worked hard. Celebrate it,
right?
So I do have some hope, and I think a lot of the idiots who've been whipped up deliberately on the campuses are going to have to go away, but. I can't. How can we not have hope, right?
Yeah, no, we can't lose hope. I mean, that's the great thing about I think about religion. I mean, to me, God is hope, and that's what it represents for me, and that my whole relationship is based on that. I put my faith in that, and I'm looking forward to going to church this Sunday. I've been traveling so much, I haven't really been able to get in there and actually go worship again. And I can't wait to see what my priest has to say about it. I'm Anglo-Catholic, which is Episcopalian, which, it has its own things. But I want to go and hear, because he's Father Davis is quite an amazing mind. He's very, very smart, and it'll help me deal with this situation that we're in, and everything that's going on, and try to make some sense of it. You've really helped me out quite a bit, so I'm indebted to you for that.
Glad to be of help. That's a surprise.
You are. So it's an incredible thing, man.
It's crazy. I might be more sensitive
crazy.
to others.
It's almost like you can't believe. It's almost like you can't believe the script. You going like, how does I mean, I know even before this attack, you're looking at what's going on in our country, and you're how is it completely the opposite of the way I see it?
Yep.
It's the way things are going.
Yep.
How?
Exactly right.
How does that work? And I'm still in California, and I love California, and I don't want to leave California. I don't agree with politics. I don't agree with, at this point, if I were to leave, they're going to tax me anyway.
I love that. How insane is that? Right? That is the hallmark of an abusive society, right? They used to torture you if you try to get over the Berlin Wall, and now our country, and now your state has decreed that when you leave, sorry, we're an abusive spouse, and we're going to come after you anyway. We're going to find you no matter what safe house you go to.
It doesn't really matter. Yeah. So I'm here, and I've got my business here. I love living in Hollywood, and I love Hollywood, and I love the whole culture here, and I love what we do as artists. And I have a hard, it's hard's not the right word. I love all the people I work with, and I love the diversity, and I love all that. I truly do, and I love differing ideas and opinions, and it's, you kind of got to navigate your way through it and try not to offend anybody, and stay true to who you are and find the truth. And there are people here, and there are, guys and gals that I know that, we can kind of sit and talk, and we kind of agree a little bit more than some other people. And
that's fair.
But it's interesting, I mean, I'm open to hear what people have to say. So here I sit.
It's awesome. And thank you for taking the time. I mean, it is part of what I love about we set this show up in mid 2020 just because, as actually the buddy of mine who's a producer out in Hollywood said to me, Christopher, I love that you call and tell me how stupid everybody is. Why don't we tell someone else?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing and giving me a lot of things to think about. And I hope we get to do this again. Our friendship started with
doors always open.
I appreciate the friendship started with the Combat Control Foundation, and we want to make sure which we did. We touched on that and how important it is. One of the things I do want to say to you is I want you. I don't know how familiar you are. I think we talked about a little bit. Was TAPS, Tragedy Assistance Survival Program that Bonnie Carroll created when her husband, who was a general, was killed. She created a whole organization, nonprofit, that is assist families of the fallen of how to survive with the loss of a spouse or a loved one, parents, children, spouses, how to grieve properly, and how to to go on and honor the legacy of their loved one. And I've spoken the last 2 years at TAPS Memorial Day weekend.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great group. I encourage you to check it out, and your listeners to check it out, because it deals with that, the whole messy side of, what do you do when you lose someone, and how do you move forward, and how do you honor them? Mark, I want to tell this story if I can real quick about this. Mark Navat, I took, and he and Bonnie have hit it off. They've become friends, and New York Mike, and we went, and Mark was looking at the wall of I can't remember what they call it, maybe the wall of honor or the wall of the loved ones. And there's pictures of children that have gone and parents that have passed on in service to the country. And he's looking and he sees this picture of a man, I can't remember his name, that he had served with. And there's this teenage girl looking at the picture, and Mark identified him. And this teenage girl turned to him and said, "You knew my dad?"
Wow.
So,
ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
And I watched Mark tell her about her father and what he was like. And he had obviously passed away very early in this girl's life.
Yep.
And it was, obviously one of the most moving moments I've ever witnessed. And it's all because of TAPS, this Tragedy Assistance Survival Program. And, that's one of the reasons why I agreed with Mark that I would, be an ambassador for the combat controllers. And as a result, I've got, Captain Roland Matthews. I've got, he was a CCT that was ambushed along with another soldier when they were coming back to their base. And I met his family, and I wear his bracelet. You can't really see it, but Mark gave me his bracelet. I wear his bracelet for a Combat Control Foundation. And I met his parents and spent Memorial Day with them. And they were involved with TAPS as well. So I think that one of the things I wanted to make sure I bring up is for your listeners and your viewers, that
the whole country needs to do better.
Program is a great organization, and it's a way to give back to the families, because as we talked about with the armed forces, the families serve.
Yes.
The kids go away on bases with them. Yep. And the spouses serve. Everybody serves when their parents are in the military. So it's a great organization.
That's brilliant. I'll be sure to put the link down below. We'll give them a big shout.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. No, that's there's not if we ever were able to count the cost of the wars before we enter them, I don't think we'd ever enter them.
Yeah. And I've been feeling kind of, with everything that's going on, it's almost like I can't, it's hard to be jovial. I don't want to say that I'm personally taken on, I'm depressed, but I almost, because you hear of the atrocities that were committed against these poor innocent civilians that were just, waking up one morning and they were attacked.
Yep. And now not only have they been attacked, but it would be, because it's part of the work we do, right? I was getting the video feeds directly starting from October 7th. I mean, so
oh my God,
I refuse to look away. The Quakers have a brilliant, because the Quakers are famously pacifists, right? But part of what they say is that there's a huge amount of human suffering, and even though I'm not going to fight, right, it is incumbent upon me to bear witness. And so I'm perfectly happy to fight, but I refuse to look away. I mean, these people it was horrifying what is done to them in a way. And for everyone who's seen horror movies, you think you've seen horror movies, you will know forever that you're watching a fake movie the next time you see a horror movie. The worst thing in the world.
I don't think I could do that.
I don't
think I could do it. I don't think I could witness what you witnessed.
It hones my hatred and my resolve to do what I can to help end this forever, right? I'm an older guy now, and I'm not in the military, but the work we do supports the military, and I grew up in a defense family. Like, everything I can do, I will do, and it hones my resolve to eradicate this evil from the planet. Quite frankly, conversations like this and publishing them are part of that. I cannot let stand any of this nonsense about there are two sides. There are no two sides to this. There is a democratic elected country that is defending its citizens against psychotic mass murderers. There are no two sides here. There is nothing that anyone has done politically that justifies this. And idiots like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, the disgraces in the Congress, there is nothing that justifies this. So if the small part of what I can do is this at least, and make this noise, I will make it all day long. It is literally the least I can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't. I don't think I could watch it, and I commend you on that. And it does give you the resolve to do what you do, and you're doing it now. This is your way of fighting back.
And they want to come do it to me. They want to come do it to my children, and I'm not going to look away.
Well, I'm. This starts to get into other things, because this should prevent anyone taking away the Second Amendment in the United States.
Oh, you betcha.
If that doesn't cement,
well, you'll notice what is every leftist goal? They want to disarm the population.
Yeah.
The first thing Hitler did was take away the guns from people. What does every leftist want? They talk about public safety and all this crap. No, they want to disarm the population. And that can never happen in this country. It will never happen. It's impossible.
It's not going to happen for sure now, I don't think. I mean, that's one thing we walk away with. I mean, I am a gun owner, and I believe in taking the personal responsibility to be able to have the right to defend myself and my family. And especially after what we have just witnessed.
It's a nightmare, but the only result we can have is we push on and we fight evil, right? I mean, that's
we push on and we fight evil. Absolutely.
But
absolutely,
that's it. Robert, thank you so much for taking the time. A great conversation. I've learned.
I hope so, Christopher. You are fantastic. I really learned a lot talking with you, and I'm so grateful I got to meet you and have our time together here on this, and also at dinner. And you're fascinating, and I really appreciated your point of view, and thank you so much.
And you too. Appreciate it. This is great. This is awesome.
You betcha.
We'll do more of this. And I'm just going to close, as I normally do, tell my listeners that they should turn off the mainstream media who are lying to you and tune into Messy Times.
Learn what Bitcoin is, how it works, and why it matters. Bitcoin 101, your ultimate guide to the fundamentals of blockchain.